Hello folks, hope you're having a great day today. Today I want to do something a little different. I had a couple of folks that have talked to me a little bit about my background with my books and so forth. And of course, you know, as a channel that's oftentimes doing a lot of reviews and things like that of books and novels and stuff, and short stories occasionally. I've talked about some comics here and there too, or games and such. One of the things I thought would be appropriate would be to use a background here that's a bookshelf and so forth that has a lot of my books in it. Many of the books that I talk about in my video series are actually here on the bookshelf too. And of course I had some jokes about that because that like the YouTube required checklist or something like that. And I've also had some people that have requested to kind of do a quick little tour of my bookshelf. So I figured I'd do that. We do a little bit of unpacking. You can kind of take a look and see what sort of things I have here and so forth here in the back of my bookshelves and so forth. So I'm happy to do that for you. So that's what we're going to do right now. Now the cool thing about that is that this is actually going to give me a chance to try to practice, you know, moving people around and so forth, because I haven't done that yet. So again, this is going to give me a chance to do precisely that. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so as you can see down here, I've got a whole lot of different series fiction and so forth. Over here, it's underneath most of the camera angle. The main series that you're going to be seeing here are Dragonlance. There's a couple of and there are, to be fair, some Ravenloft books right there too. But it's based in some Greyhawk and stuff too. But as you can see, it's mostly just it's just Forgotten Realms and so forth. And what I try to do, where possible, is I try to bring out some of my favorite series in the front so I can read them. You'll also note that here in the back are going to be some bigger books. One of the things I like to do for this shelf, and this is not my only shelf too, I have so many books, it's just crazy at times. So one of the things I actually will sometimes do is I will actually put books in front of books in front of books. Like I've done that here. You can see like lots of stacks of books behind books. I'll do that, you know, in most of my places too. You can see it, you know, here, back there, and so forth, and everywhere. So anyway, back here you can kind of see, again, a lot of this sort of series fiction, mostly TSR, and so forth. And that's going to continue over here, too, with the occasional sort of things here in the back. Changing that up a little bit at a time for y'all. Okay, now here you can also kind of see back here are more series fiction in the back here, too. Because that's how much I love the, you know, Dragonlance and so forth. You can kind of see just all sorts of things in there from Dalamar, to characters from that and so forth. You can even see some stuff from some Magic the Gathering stuff back there too. Over here you got my Dragonlance stuff and so forth. Now again, you can kind of see back there just basically a whole bunch of series. So this basically giant shelf has tons and tons of books by various sort of series authors and series genres. Now down here below are my big books. This is my big bookshelf. One of the things I like to put down here are any sort of, you know, large books here by something like, say, Moorcock or something like that. It's going to be here. I also have things, you know, down there like, you know, you can see things down there like most of my Conan stuff from R.B.D. Howard, as well as some other things by him. Moorcock's many books there too. You also have, you know, many of my other big fictions here. You're going to see there are any sorts of big books that are going to be down there, like, say, the Chronicles of Amber. You also see down here Leoness, the entire Leoness series by Jack Vance. Many other bigger writers, too, that just had some bigger collections. Everything from some Deshawn, other hardcover books, too. Over here is kind of going to be my Dragonlance, or, well, I'm sorry, my Dragon Singers, other Anne McCaffrey stuff. Down here is going to be over here on the side of it. I also have... This is pretty cool. I haven't talked about it yet in my series. It's probably something I should probably talk about soon. Is the Louise Cooper trilogy, which I think is really good and very well done, and so forth. So that's there too for you. And you can kind of see lots of things back there in the back too, from Ted Williams stuff and so forth, to many other sorts of writers. You also have back here the Dragonlance. I'm sorry, the Demon Wars trilogy by R.A. Salvatore is also back there too. You can kind of see that back there too. Let me move some of these things back there, make it a little bit clearer for you. That's probably a little bit better. You can also see some of my Lone Wolf things here down there too, which I really love. Down here on the bottom is a lot of my, this is a Battletech series. I really enjoyed Battletech growing up. It's one of my favorite games and so forth. So to my bottom down there is just a ton of Battletech stuff. And in fact, it's more than 100 books. I have them all, I've read them all, and so forth. And they're there in order from the earliest to the last. Now, behind this epic number of Battletech books and so forth are actually my kids' books. And I don't want to spend too much time down there. There's no lights out down there. It isn't like super great and so forth. But you can kind of see down there and get a kind of an idea and a feel for just how stuff is back there. I do have an occasional series fiction down there, like Doctor Who and stuff. But for the most part, it's just Battletech and other kids' books that I enjoyed when I was a kid and so forth when I was growing up. And also, back here behind some of these other things back here too, just in case you're curious, there are also going to be some Lone Wolf things back there too, as well as some more children's books like Choose Your Own Adventure stories and stuff like that I also enjoyed when I was a kid. Okay, coming back over here, we're going to see some other things. Here is a lot of my sort of science fiction works that I'm working on, or science fiction sections is kind of over here. It has everything over here from some things like Isaac Asimov's things, Carl Sagan's stuff over here, Lucifer's Hammer, and so forth. I do have some bigger things back here too, like some Paul Anderson works. Like I'm also going to be doing some David Drake stuff too. I'm probably looking at Redliners, and maybe one or two of his other things in there too. At some point in time, and you'll see things in here like Isaac Asimov again, and so forth coming over here. Arthur C. Clarke, Carl Sagan, and so forth. And this entire shelf is also going to have Kim Stanley Robinson's things over there, like the Mars trilogy and so forth. It's going to be back there too. There will be a couple of science fiction, fantasy works here and there. Like I think this is the only place I can fit like my Lawrence Watt Evans things. So you'll see some stuff in here like his things in there too. But for the most part, this is the beginning of my sort of science fiction collection. Up here is basically my Salvatore shelf. It's mostly just Salvatore works, with a couple of things from the Forgotten Realms there in the front. But it's basically just his Clairquintet and some of his books. I do have the Wheel of Time thing back there, but this is basically just all Salvatore stuff back there too. I also have some more Salvatore things over here. This is my second section of my Salvatore sections. And so forth. You can also see some of my Elven Star, Dragonwing, Margaret Weis, and Tracy Hickman series stuff. You can also see some of my Terry Brooks collection. Back behind here is my Catherine Kurtz stuff. So if you look back here, you would see all of my Dorini series is back there by her, and so forth. You can also see some things here and there by like things like Dennis McKernan, who I actually like a lot. I actually think he's a pretty cool writer and such. I do have some of my older works. I like reading a lot of these sort of epic works from previous stories, like The Three Kingdoms or things like that. I also have some of my sort of large books that won't fit anywhere else, like Lost World, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, some of those sort of old school books from the Iron Heel, Edgar Rice Burroughs, and so forth. Up here is the beginning of part of my, and I'm not going to spend too much time on that. This is part of my comic collection, most of my trades that I've picked up in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and so forth, but you can kind of see that back there. I do have about 8 or 9 trades boxes over there, or not trades, but just normal comic boxes over here too. So there's a ton of those over there too. I also have over here, I decided to leave this kind of messy because it's not really kind of in my thing. These are basically all of the books that are currently on the queue for my reviews. So I kind of pulled them out, and you can see anything here from Henry Kuttner stuff, some H.P. Lovecraft things, when I finished up Dying Earth by Jack Vance, to things I haven't talked about yet, like E.R. Edison's The Worm Ouroboros, which is one of the most influential stories in fantasy history, and so forth. Classics, adventure stuff, science fiction stuff, famous writers, and so forth that I've sort of pulled aside that I'm going to be looking at here probably in the next month or so. I also have up here my horror things here on my top shelf, which you probably have to see the most clearly. This is basically my Cthulhu Mythos shelf. All the things you're going to see here at the top are going to be basically things from Ramsey Campbell to Hugh Cave and so forth. So it's going to be basically a whole bunch of stuff that I have from like older times and such. But basically back there you're going to see a whole lot of like Lovecraft and so forth. If you were to pull back some of these books, you would see some just general mythology things for the most part. I also have a lot of my classics in just sort of horror, like M.R. James, Shirley Jackson, things like that are also in here too, that aren't like in the Cthulhu Mythos, but are sort of these older school sort of horror works too. And again, if you were to go back there, you probably find some theology textbooks, mythology works, and the occasional classic like Robinson Crusoe or something. That would be back there too. Then back here is kind of my miscellaneous shelf. In the front here are most of my are some of my classic fantasies. I also really enjoy a lot of, like I said, a lot of old school fiction. So you'll see the Nibelungenlied, the Song of Roland, Poem of the Cid, the Kalevala, which I might be mispronouncing, and so forth. Lots of mythology and stuff. I really sort of loved that when I was a kid, and I continue to enjoy it to this day. You can also kind of see some science fiction works in here from Roger Zelazny, Paul Anderson, so forth, that are in Jack Vance's Big Plan, which is a pretty cool book. It's Kurt Vonnegut and so forth. And back here are going to be more of those sorts of books. Back here, more textbooks that are just kind of back there from when I was in my seminary, getting my master's in theological studies, a seminary out. And so a lot of those books in the back there are just kind of more textbooks and so forth that are kind of there to flesh out a lot of things that I'm doing. But again, you can kind of get a feel there just again for some of the old pulps from Fu Manchus by Sax Rohmer to you know, various other things in there too. There are also some books in here too that we'll talk about. It's probably at some point in time like a Canticle for Leibowitz or something like that. But again, you can kind of get an idea and a feel there for what basically my other stuff is. Now, I also have, in addition to that, over here on my other side, are all my, and there's like a massive number of DVDs over here, like a ton, and I don't really do like a ton of DVDs. I have thousands of DVDs that I collected back when DVDs were a thing. I now have only a small number of Blu-rays because I use streaming devices for everything. I do have some of my book collections, like for example, down here's my Doctor Who book collection, which takes up a whole shelf of there. I also, and I'm going to show you this too, just real briefly, because it's a part of the context of who I am, have like a ton of board games too. I have a giant board game shelf with everything from Ticket to Ride to Dungeon Lords to Oko, Carcassonne, and so forth. And there's a whole bunch more in there. And so you can see some of my favorite board games like Rising Sun in there too. I also, actually, these shelves back here have a bunch more that you might sometimes see in my videos behind it, but have a bunch more sort of games and such in them too, as well as some other things too. So anyway, that's kind of a quick tour here of my game and media room. And so forth. I have a 2-bedroom apartment here in Catonsville, Maryland, so I have it basically all to myself. But again, you can kind of see everything from Tom Clancy to, you know, Thomas Costain's pretty solid stuff from the 50s and so forth, to Leslie Kinston classics and so forth. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this quick little tour of my apartment and so forth. Hey, if you enjoyed this, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to invest in this video. We all have busy days and busy lives. The fact that you spent some of that with me, and that's something I really appreciate. So thank you very much. And hey, once again, thank you so much for your time.